Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. We've got plans and drama to cover, never a dull moment. Let's dig in. This Saturday at 5 p.m., we will be conducting the Shake Up Congress Car Parade event. We will be decorating our vehicles with messaging about recurring payments to the people throughout the prolonged crisis, driving around government buildings for half an hour, shaking cans or piggy banks with a couple coins in them out the window, and chanting that the economy needs us and we need recurring stimulus payments. Be sure to have someone snap some photos of the procession and post to social media with hashtags recurring cash payments and Shake Up Congress. At 5:30 p.m., we'll put our banks or jars on the front steps of the building with letters to Congress or signs saying that we need monthly payments during the crisis. More photos and videos of this. It'll have many times the effect if you coordinate with your local Yang Gang and contact local news agencies ahead of time to let them know it will be going on. Now is the time to start preparing so we can have the biggest impact possible. You'll find all these details at the link below. One of the new co-sponsors of Ryan's bill, Alma Adams, contacted Yang on Twitter and asked if he'd like to have a chat over Zoom with a couple thousand close friends about basic income. Yang replied that he would. So it looks like that'll be happening at some point. 80 members of Congress plus 3 senators wrote a letter to the heads of Congress and the Senate asking them to include basic income in the next stimulus bill. It's awesome to see so many names on the list and to see we're no longer the only ones pushing for basic income. We've started an official movement in Congress, gang. On the other hand, it's also clear that the House Dems could really use Treacle's help with appealing to Republicans. I honestly don't know how they can be so bad at it when it's such a huge part of their job. Then again, that's probably why they suck at their job. Not a lot of effort going into compromising or convincing in the legislature these days, as far as I can tell, despite the fact that that's the only reason for them being there. But they're going to have to figure it out, and we're going to have to help them because Republican legislators, despite their voting base being firmly in favor, are currently firmly opposed to basic income, or at least while the Democrats are pushing it. Representative Spano from the great failed state of Florida said that it will never pass, that it is more welfare, and that it is an untested policy that's likely to increase unemployment, thus proving beyond any shadow of a doubt that he has not examined the first iota of data on UBI and is talking out he's wrong. Clearly, we need to work harder to get the message across that UBI creates jobs, it's nothing like welfare, and it's essential to revive the consumer confidence, consumption, and the economy, as well as to save these legislators personally from the chopping block. The White House has also said that they aren't looking at any further stimulus for a few weeks and will be aiming for payroll tax cuts next, an approach that even other Republicans recognize as objectively terrible. Forget the unemployment numbers. I want to know how these people are employed. Clearly, it's going to be up to us to convince McConnell and Trump that basic income is the only viable path forward, and it's not going to be easy, but I guess we have a few weeks at least. You remember back when Tulsi Gabbard said that Google and YouTube were shutting her out during her campaign run? Well, it appears that similar tactics are being employed against Yang and one of his congressional candidates, Jonathan Herzog. Herzog ran a political ad stating he was running against his opponent, Nadler. Shortly after, Herzog noted that the Google results from searching his name had completely changed and been flooded with nonsense news stories completely unconnected to him in any way. Every one of the news stories that showed up was a different URL to the same Sinclair Broadcasting website. Every result had a completely unconnected story with the same copy-pasted description about Herzog fighting the New York boards in the courts with Yang, with nothing whatsoever about them in the actual story. Problem Solver Politics investigated a bit using multiple different search engines to confirm that it was only Google that this occurred on, and that the dummy results filled the first 8 pages of results. It's hard to say whether Sinclair simply gamed Google's algorithm or whether Google had something to do with it as well, but it went on for days after Google was notified, and there is no question that it was an intentional effort to block the public from accessing information on Herzog or Yang, or the lawsuit, or some combination of the three. It is episodes like these, or people being banned or hidden on social media, that make it clear why monopolies in these areas are an extreme concern. If everyone uses Google to find things on the internet, and Google decides to hide someone or something, it's gone. If they disapprove of a person or message or whatever, they can erase it from the public, and people may never even know if they didn't have another source showing them something different. Imagine Twitter and Google and Facebook get together and decide to erase some people. Assuming that person doesn't have a TV show, 95% of that person's ability to communicate with other human beings is wiped out. It's not hard at all to imagine an Orwellian dystopia using such power to censor and control public thought. So that's something to think about when considering monopolies, on top of what we have discovered earlier about suppression of wages and inflation of prices. Herzog has notified the FBI and other proper authorities to investigate for election fraud. Forward United is setting up their Discord and have invited people to join if they're interested in helping. Either way, you'll want to track it because it will be an important hub for the movement going forward. As it turns out, because of how proactive the Taiwanese government has been with the virus and how cooperative the public there is with social distancing and mask wearing, they never needed a lockdown in their economy, and yet, consumption still dropped like a rock. This makes it pretty clear how the mythology around our economy bouncing right back as soon as we lift the lockdown is flawed. Even with businesses reopened, fear of the virus and financial insecurity are going to hold back consumption. That is going to be the limiting factor in the economy's recovery, not production. In order to recover, we need to get the virus under control and establish dependable income for everyone. Humanity Forward has announced that their first UBI pilot in Hudson, New York, which will consist of a $500 basic income for 20 individuals, lasting 5 years. I could sure use one. 5 years may be the longest pilot I've heard of. I hope that we'll have a federal UBI before that pilot concludes, though. The project is called Hudson Up. Make sure to follow them on Twitter, link below. In a shocking poll out of the UK, 80% of residents said that they would prefer the government focus on health and well-being rather than the economy during the pandemic. Can you believe that? Health and well-being. It's like they think the economy is only a means to try and improve quality of life for society as a whole, rather than a means in and of itself that is far more important than people living well. What fools! Seriously though, how is this even a question? It's like asking if I'd rather prioritize having a happy life or taking care of my Zen garden. The latter only exists to assist the former, so there's really only one sensible answer here. I don't have a Zen garden, by the way, that was just an example. Maybe I should get one, though. Something to think about. That does make it a rather confusing question, though, especially since the economy is such an important factor in well-being, but it is still a sub-factor. Maybe confusion is why, when they asked about after the crisis, only 60% chose health and well-being. Like, I may be dying and miserable, but as long as my 401k is doing well, that's what counts? Finally, Majid Nawaz argued on his popular British TV show that whatever party adopts the newly popular UBI will ride it to victory in the next election. Majid even called out how successful Yang was in popularizing UBI in America and how much it did for his campaign. He noted how beneficial it's been in trials. He noted it will be a vaccine against automation as well. He called it the NHS of 2020. If you're not familiar, NHS is the UK's National Healthcare Service, which is incredibly beloved over there. I think he's entirely right, and I think it's equally true in the US. Whichever party adopts UBI will win the election, and I don't know how Trump and Biden have failed to see this yet. It's going to be a race to see which of them wakes up first. But that doesn't mean that we can't nudge them in the right direction, gang. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Prepare for the parade. Subscribe to the Forward United Discord, follow Hudson Up on Twitter, visit bailoutthepeople.com and take action, call the Congressional Switchboard to send the most effective message you can to your representatives, help recruit burners and others to the cause and get everyone to sign the petition and join the UBI movement, flood Congress and Trump with calls, tweets, and letters, but particularly 5 calls a day, using the Resist Bot or Income Movement as easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, United Way, or the H3 podcast thread, and don't forget to Yang Daily.